Well, thanks everybody for joining. This is number 6 in our Design Your Life series. And we're also calling it Tuesdays with Tony and Randy. The next one, there you go. So last week we had, can you just go back to that other? So you'll see if you go back, it's actually on the sales community website under events. So you'll see goal setting, strategic health, personal brand, strategic relationships, disc communications. And last week with the disc communications, Tony was kind enough to basically pass along a software template where you can find your own personality style. And not only does it help you, but also there are several people on the Zoom that actually have used that in the past, and they'll use that with their teams to help their teams communicate more effectively. So for those that are here live, it's great. Definitely encourage you to go back and take a look at the past ones. And this one, number 6 on strategic learning, I think will be really great. And it's really not just strategic learning for yourselves, but also it's helping your customers or prospects also learn in terms of kind of what you're selling or what you're trying to position. So look forward to our time here, and I know time is valuable, so appreciate everybody for joining. Tony?
Thanks. You know how this all started out, Randy, and everybody that's on with us today, was there's a church that I do strategy for work. It's one of the largest in the country. It's called Gateway, and they have developed some really great curriculum, and they asked me to unpack how learning really works. So I started penciling out some things to really take my whole history. I wrote a book originally many years ago. One of my first 5 or 6 books was called Training Other People to Train. And I was fascinated with the whole idea of how do you get people to really learn. And I think it applies a lot of different ways, as Randy said. Our subject's going to apply to you, like why do you seek out and learn? It's going to apply to you as a leader, like if you have a team, and if you have like an entire company like Phil does, it's going to apply across the board on how you impact your culture to get people to absorb. As a sales manager, you got to think about how do you get people to learn your product, or how do you get them to learn a skill or the process of what you want to really play out. So it's going to have a lot of different applications. Let's bounce through it as we normally do. We kind of set it up into the purpose, process, and payoff. The purpose, raise awareness regarding really how do you influence people in the right state of learning. How do you improve conditions for yourself and others to be able to absorb and learn? And in fact, let's just do a check for a second. Learning. Can everybody kind of chime in on the when you're like, what's it down at the bottom when you're chiming in? What's it called? I'm drawing a blank.
When you what?
In the chat?
Chat. Would everybody chat in, please, if you would? 1 to 10, how well do you know the subject of learning? 10's high, 1's low. Let's just do a little check, Randy. 2, 6, 4, 5, 4, 2. Nothing above a 6 so far. There's a 6, Phil. 6, Eric. 7. All right, 5. All right, so bottom line is there's a 9. A lot of people really haven't studied learning. I wrote a book with the president of ASTD, which is now ATD. It's the largest training organization in the world. And I've been so fascinated with learning for so many years, and I want to give you like the best of the best. And as Randy and I kind of rehearsed on how to really bring this to life as a community, we said we don't want it just to be me talking. We want to continue to have the flow of us having this kind of discussion. So please continue to chat. Please continue to pipe in. We divided the process into the psychology of a learner, the factors of influencing learning. So there's going to be 7 we're going to go over. And then I picked 5 learning models. And I believe models are one of the fastest ways that you can learn. And then we'll go to comments from everybody. So that's our process. As far as payoff, we've got 3 things. Improved leadership, ability to cascade information to your team, and in strategic learning on really how to get and educate prospects to your way of thinking. Let's dig in. The psychology of a learner. Everybody I think that's been around me or knows me or read my books knows I'm really into the belief window. So we got the person on the left, the world on the right. Between you and the world is a window. And on that window, you have principles. That's the red dots. And those red dots represent your truisms or how you believe things are. And oftentimes, if you'll see the next one, you'll see an X. Your principles on your window are not accurate. So we believe that learning starts with what's on your window. Like if you grew up and your parents really nourished learning, and that's going to be on your window. Tucker, how about you? Did you grow up where your parents were saying, hey, you need to learn, read books, study?
Yeah, definitely a big emphasis.
So on your window, you didn't have to go out and grow into learning. Your parents poured that into you.
Yes.
Like a lot of people today, when you ask them, how many books have I read in the last year? They're like, and they're sad. They're like, 2, right? Because it's not on their window to keep learning. Phil, did you grow up where your parents were like pouring into your learning? Like learn, 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 learn.
Yeah, they pushed reading on me. I hated reading, but I do a lot of reading online now.
Who else would like to share? How did you grow up? What did your parents teach you about learning?
This is Joe. I was in the same bucket.
Again?
You got to read more. And like Phil, I hated it. I found it very boring. I'd rather be outside playing football or baseball. But, eventually at some point it's, came around to realize.
Do you believe this? Do you believe that the more you learn, the more you earn?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
All right. How about this one? How many hours a week? Put this on chat. How many hours a week are you intentionally studying, like to learn stuff? Let's put some numbers up there. Hours a week that you're intentionally learning. And it can include being a better parent. It can include better selling effectiveness. Like how many hours? Let's see what shows up, Randy. 6 hours, Eric. All right, that's a big number.
I got some free time.
2. Oh, no, this is hours, not 1 to 10. This is hours you really, really are intentionally, like, do you go to bed reading a book, learning, watching a video?
Yeah.
Do you study?
See, Joe said the company has a rule of 4 hours dedicated.
Who does?
Joe.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that.
I do too. That's a great standard. That's a great standard.
Well, it's a learning company, so it should be that way.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So
You exceeded your learning quota, but you underperformed on your sales quota.
Yeah, there you go.
we got to have both. Remember the blind spots? You look at the logo. Do you see the arrow? Do you see the serving spoon?
Yeah.
So what happens is a lot of people in learning have a blind spot and they don't see, and they go by for years and they go, wow, I really haven't been pouring into my learning. How about this? Those of us that are parents, how much are we pouring into our kids that they should be learning more and more? And the value that they get when you look back. I just continue to share a story in 1986 about a series of audio recordings. And one of the recordings said, if you would study one subject 30 minutes a day for a year, you'd become an expert. And that had such a profound effect on my life because I said, wow, if you studied every day over and over and over for the rest of your life, it would be like such an advantage. And a lot of people don't. And so that's one of the things we want to encourage today. A blind spot is when you don't see something. Strategic learning can uncover blind spots. And that's what you want to do. You really want to be able to keep growing, learning, and moving forward. The belief window really sets it up. What's on your window? Either you believe it or you don't. Your culture believes it or they doesn't. When you hire someone, they believe it or they don't. Your HR person's into it or not, right? Like the whole belief window. So the psychology of a learner, this is like the core right up front of what we're going to go over today. And I've developed a model, and the model is divided into 7 areas. Let me unpack it. And this is something you might want to take a picture of. At the center of an adult learner, this is you or your team, is your belief window. And there's 7 specific things I've come up with. It's not the end all. It's not an absolute. It's just 7 things that you really want to think about when you're either learning more yourself or you're getting people to learn. Here we go. Number 1, one of the things people think about is it going to be valuable for me to read this, watch this, or participate? So when you decide, Eric, to show up on one of these community calls, you're asking yourself, is this going to be valuable for my 45 minutes, right? Now, I know you like Randy and we're friends and all that, but you're really thinking, I got a lot of things I could be doing. Is this going to be valuable or not? And everybody on the line today, and everybody that's on the line watching it recorded, is asking themselves, is this going to be valuable? So that's one of the filters. Is it going to be valuable? Another thing that we all filter is whoever is writing it, delivering it, passing along, are they credible and are they validated? So when you go read a book and you go back and you look at the author and you go, oh, okay, well, they've done that. Okay, there's some credibility. What do you guys think about that?
Makes sense.
Right? The more credible someone is, the more you go, okay, I'm open-minded to hear what they have to say. If they're living it, doing it, breathing it, then they're more credible. But true or not?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Amen.
that's two. Number 3, motivation. How motivated are you to learn? If you're not really motivated, someone can give you a book and you go, oh, thanks for the book, and it goes on your bookshelf. And you probably don't throw it away, but you don't even read it. You don't even open the book. So how motivated are you? That's a piece. Or how motivated are your people, your team? Number 4, what's your past experience say? So your filter says, oh, wow, every time I get on a community call like this with Randy and Tony, I get motivated, inspired, and I pick up some distinctions. If your past experience is positive, then you're going to be more open. Your window's going to be more open to learn. If it's, well, golly, that was kind of like boring subject, or then it's what? It's going to be filtered out. So your past experience is one piece that really does impact, if you will, your learning, others and yourself. Another piece to the puzzle is, what do you have on your belief window about short-term and long-term? If you're a total long-term person, you're going to learn for the long haul. If you're short-term, you're saying, is this going to help me right now? So you're constantly asking yourself, is this going to be something good right now? Or is it going to help me overall? Can I cascade it with my team? Can I use it with my kids? You're thinking all those pieces. Do you have capacity? Sometimes you're full. Let me ask you, Phil, is your calendar ever full?
Is it empty?
So what I say
Oh,
is sometimes our calendars are so full, right, Randy, that we don't have capacity. And we're like, hey, I just need to pause right now and digest and deliver. What are you laughing about, Eric? Agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to picture Phil's calendar. It's packed.
Yeah. And then the last one here is the timing right? Because things happen in our life. Let's say that your kid's going off to college and you need to focus on making that happen for a week or two. Or you have a health issue with someone in your family. And right now the timing is just not right. Then you're saying, I'm not going to burn energy in learning. I need to put my energy into something that's very specific. Right, Tucker?
Absolutely.
So let me walk you through each one of these 7. And then Randy, anything that you want to pipe in on, or anybody, please feel free to kind of share, ask, add to. Any questions so far, anybody? Like, would you agree most people haven't unpacked how people learn and why they don't? Here's the filter. Let's go through them. So the first one is value. New information can bring us different levels of value. We often decide on value of new information without taking the time, and we quickly brush off something that could be valuable, or we can spend too much time. So we got to constantly ask ourselves, how valuable is this new information to me? And how valuable is the new information going to be to the rest of the world? If we're wanting somebody on our team, our sales team, to absorb, we got to ask ourselves up front, are we putting that value up front so they want to, if you will, show up at our weekly staff meeting and be willing to learn? Because if they don't think it's valuable, they zone out. So it's part of the whole invitation, and I'm gonna connect the dots on that in a few minutes. Any thoughts on value? Randy, any comments? Tucker?
Yeah. You have to, if there's no value, you're not going to do it.
And it's what's on our window. If we go, it's not going to be valuable, we're not going to do it, not going to put the energy. So what does that mean? That means for us, when we're inviting people to learn, when we're training them, the invitation, what we say, how we set it up matters so much if someone shows up to learn or not, right? Because if they don't value it, then guess what? They may not show up mentally.
So Tony, so it's Eric real quick. So how do you make that invitation valuable? Really get them, pique their interest so they don't come presupposing they're going to hate it. It's sales training. I'm already checked out, right? You don't want that.
So if Randy was delivering a talk, and we might invite people to Randy's talk, we might say, you may or may not know Randy. Randy's been in the business for over 30 years. He started with EMC, and he has an incredible track record of being able to produce results in the business development arena. 35 years. He's been with 4 or 5 different companies, and he's very respected, has a following that's amazing. And what he did is he took the last 4 weeks really designing a subject that would be valuable to us today, and he's compressed it down to only about 20 minutes. And so I really appreciate that he's done that. He's taken 35 years and he's compressed it down to about 20 minutes. So I'd encourage everybody, if you would, please take notes. And at the end, we're going to have a discussion to really see kind of what we're taking away from Randy's 30 years and his 20 minutes.
There you go.
Now, if we don't do that, we can be lazy. And here's what we can say. Hey, Randy's a friend of mine and he's really cool. He's done some cool stuff. And I've asked him to come into our sales meeting for 20 minutes. It's like we haven't primed the pump. And so I'm proposing that one takeaway for today is how you invite people into the learning, whether it's a video, an email, a discussion, a personal interaction. It connects if a person is a student or not. Because they could come in, Eric, as a prisoner, and they're coming in like this. They're like, I don't want to be here. Versus, hey, I got my pen and I'm ready to take notes.
Well, I've been with you when salespeople do both. I've been in both sessions with you, both types.
Yeah. Right. All right. Number 3, are people motivated? New information can be learned if you have the right mindset. Are you motivated? Maybe one of the takeaways today, Randy, for people is to absolutely say, I've got to learn more. Like I'm 30, 40, 50, 70, however old you are, and you got to say, my learning is not where it could be. And in fact, when people look up at you, like I don't want my team to look up at me and I'm like preaching learning and I don't learn. Like I want my team to look at me and say, this dude like outlearns anybody. He is so open to growing and being better. So think about your own motivation. And as a leader, are you motivating the people around you by your own modeling? Who else is on the line, Randy? Pick on a few people for us. Who do you see that's here?
All right, Rich.
Yes.
All right, Tony Rich is with us. I mean,
I'm listening to Tony. I'm listening to about learning and how I learn and what my desire to learn is.
All right.
What my tank of size is for learning.
Tony, did you want to ask him something?
What would you like to ask me, Tony?
I want to ask, how many videos do you watch in a year for learning?
So I'll answer that, but I haven't written as many books as you've written, Tony, by the way.
Well, I don't write them. I just author them.
Yes, I know.
Writing takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I should say that.
Other
Ghostwriting,
people make you look good.
Tell somebody what to put in them. I get it. But how many videos do I watch? I probably read and watch videos probably 4 times a month.
Is that
5
enough?
times a month.
Is that enough?
And hold on. And I will also say this for the benefit of the group is I reread books multiple times that either I have underlined, I thought were reasonably important, that could help me. And because you going out and reading 1,000 books is meaningless unless you practice what you've been taught. Because I give Tony a second.
Yep. So you know what? It's
so Tony, here's the
what you're
thing.
saying. It's so.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Let me say it this way, and then we can go through the maturity curve and what have you and so forth. But everybody runs out to go learn something new. But what they don't do is practice what they've learned so they can get better at it. Right? Because reading 50 more books is not going to make me any smarter. It's like being an athlete. Do you practice every day? Do you work out every day? You got to do the same thing, especially when it comes to a sales culture and being a salesman or a salesperson. You have to practice it. You have to practice your social dexterity. You have to practice your emotional intelligence. You have to practice your intelligence gathering. You have to practice your pitch all the time, over and over again. Tony, don't give me the microphone because I'll keep going.
Well, how about this? You just nailed something. Because if you just cursory go over it, watch a video, and you don't study it, it only stops at short term. It does not go to your long term. You got to figure out how do you reread it, rewrite it, highlight it, use it, or it never gets to your habits. And then you can say, well, I've written 1 million books or I've read 1 million books, but if you don't really put it into your habits where you're using it or supporting and making it part of your culture, you're not getting the whole value. Everybody agree?
Totally
Rich, I
agree.
think you're right on. It's not the number. It's like, are you intentionally putting what you learn to work? Love it. Who else would like to give a comment? Okay, so motivation. As a motivated deal, let me put this down as a takeaway. You want to put things into your habits that work, and you want your team to put it in habits so it affects your culture. Let's go to number 4, past experiences. If you've had bad past experiences, then you're going to filter things accordingly. If you've had good, you're going to filter it the other way. So is the past preventing you from moving forward? It says it right there. You got to ask yourself, you know, what's your filter? Like, I just like dig it when I like do stuff and it works. And I'm like going, wow, if I wouldn't have read that, learned that, studied that, been coached to that, then I would have known to do that. And it works and I get motivated. What do you think, Tucker?
No, I think that's spot on. And, just the sort of that last piece there of, allow us to enjoy and appreciate learning. Once you can sort of overcome that barrier of doing a lot of reading and not putting it into practice, like Rich was saying before, once you can actually see the results of the efforts that you're putting in, then it sort of opens up this whole floodgate of, okay, where else can I implement this across my, professional life, personal life? It's really, you really can become that lifelong learner.
Absolutely. Everybody on the line knows Randy. And I would propose that of all the people you can think of, all the people, that Randy is one of the best note takers of keeping up with things over time to pull it out of his backpack or whatever he's carrying, right, Randy? And he's taking great notes because he wants to use it. How many say yes on that? Thumbs up on that? And Randy, how did you get that? How did you get that habit?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Well, I mean, think about it, right?
The reality is I probably wasn't smart enough to be able to kind of memorize. And because I wasn't, then figured, okay, what's the best way that I can continue to learn and retain and go back and look at it. And by the way, I don't know everybody on you, so look forward
All right,
to
well, how about this one? How about this
I
one?
don't.
So Randy has picked up a strategy that's not on one of our slides today, strategic note-taking. Like, how many people are lazy on note-taking, or you got it down? And how many people are like having your team take notes, you're taking notes, you have a strategy for taking notes, you take a note, I take notes on my phone. Like, I've got years of cool stuff on my phone because I take the notes, I go reread the notes, the highlights of it, so it gets into my habits, I'm using it. Like, that could be a takeaway for some people. Like, if you have a culture, Phil, and your people are not like really into note taking, like, that's a cool thing, right? Taking notes. Eric, you're smiling. Do you agree or not?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've watched Randy over the years, and it looks unorganized, but he can always put his hands on what he's looking for. Sorry, boss. It just he's always got it right there.
Like 10, 12 seconds, he's going to pull it out of his case.
No joke.
He pulled the dollar out that was signed.
Let's talk about delayed gratification. The last 2 words on this slide. Like, this is like so powerful. If you don't have on your window that delayed gratification is a great strategy for life, then you might not learn as much as you could. Because sometimes we learn things now and we don't use it for 6 months or a year or 3 years. And if you constantly are putting things into your mind that you can use in the future, you're strong. But that's like long term. And if you gotta think about it, are you short term or long term? I'm just like, I can't wait to be able to put more things in my mind so one day I could use it. I can facilitate better. I can listen better. I can take notes better, Number 6, capacity. And I think this one, my coach gave me this word, and he drilled it in my head about 3 or 4 years ago. He's been my coach for 33 years, and he said, Tony, sometimes people don't have capacity to absorb or learn. And you've got to appreciate that their calendar's full, their life's full, their mind's full. I was like, wow, that's interesting, And then the last one is timing. And you have to appreciate for yourself or others that sometimes timing's not right. And you got to be careful, in my opinion, on it being an excuse. Like if you don't commit to learning, it's your deal. So there's 7. So we'll go over to the next segment, but before we do, any comments on those 7?
So just a quick question, Tony. Do you think this massive work from home shift has pushed people into becoming better learners or worse learners?
I think better. I hadn't thought about the question, but I think better. I mean, I think that here's some things to unpack that question. When you're traveling, and many of us have done many, many miles, when you're on the airplane, you have some additional alone time that you can learn, read, study, rest, prepare. And when you're not traveling, you don't have that isolated time. Agree?
Totally.
However, when you're not traveling, though, you could be at home, outside, wherever you're at, and that could give you additional time that you're not renting a car, getting on finding a vehicle, eating out at night with your friends, colleagues, clients. I say more, but I'm not sure I'm right, but I think more. What do you think,
Just
Eric?
curious. Just looking for your opinion. I'm not 100% sure because I think the stress and the emotion of surrounding the pandemic and all the quarantining and dangers, I think that's caused people to come off the rails a little.
It's a weird year, isn't it? It's a weird year, man.
Oh my God, yes.
I think
it's
the
a weird
capacity and the timing right now, like we have, younger reps that are working from home with kids at home, it's just like terrible timing to try to introduce a lot of new, or having an expectation that somebody's going to pick something up new right now.
Yeah,
it's very difficult on a lot of these families.
We had a client. Always was it in March or April that when they started really dealing with the whole I'm working from home, and then when you jump back to school, when they jump back to school July, August, and it's like we really had to train the whole fact of dealing with kids at home and learning new product knowledge so they could go sell it. I get exactly what you're saying. I mean, we dealt with that one specific company. Okay, let's go into learning models. So here is I'm going to give you 5 examples. These are 5 of my favorite models that pertain to learning. When you're presenting, oftentimes there's these tensions with the people that are learning or hearing you. One is the tension of the environment. So have you ever been on a Zoom and light is shining through someone's window and it's kind of like you can barely see the person? Or the environments where it's so dark you can't even see the person's face. Like when the environment, either in person or online, is not conducive, you get distracted. So one of the things to think about is making the environment the best. The audience and members in the group. Sometimes you might see someone online and you haven't seen him in a while. And your mind's like going, I hadn't seen Eric in a while. I wonder what he's up to. And your mind starts going into thinking about his world and not thinking about what's being taught. Between the audience and the learner, or the learner and the presenter. So oftentimes when someone's presenting or training you, you're asking yourself, are they any good? Are they really living this? Do they really know their stuff? And once you get past that, then you can really absorb their content. And the last one's the audience and materials. Sometimes there's too much stuff going on the screen. Sometimes if you're in person, there's too much material being handed out at one time. And those are 4 tensions we all have to deal with. What do you think about that, Randy?
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because it's really just the whole learning subject overall. You really don't ever think about it in this, all these different ways.
It's dissecting the distinction. If you want to get someone to absorb your product knowledge, to absorb your methodology, what you have to offer, I mean, learning really does apply. Who else? Pick on somebody else. Who else is with us today? 4 learning tensions. Anybody else want to share?
Hey, Tony, this is Phil. I really hear what you're saying about what we see online. We look at things behind the people. We look at what's happening. Just a great quick example, 6 or 7 months ago, I was on a Zoom call with a potential investor, And one of my colleagues said, did you guys crack a joke? Is there something funny? Because they were all laughing about something. And he basically called them out because we didn't feel like they were interested.
Wow.
And it's just another thing. You know, we need to pay attention to what we personally look like and what's going on behind me, you know.
Yep. It could be a distraction or not. It could add credibility or not. Agree, Phil. All right, here's the second example. It's called the 4 levels of learning. This is not mine. It's been around for many years. Many of you have heard of it. Not everybody. Let me bring it to life. Level 1 in the 4 levels of learning is unconscious incompetence. That's when you don't know that you don't know. How about this? When a kid is a baby and they're really young, and you talk about tying a shoe, they don't know about tying a shoe. They can't do it. They don't know about it. It's not even registering. You go to level 2 and you go conscious incompetence. Pretty soon they go, oh, I now know about tying a shoe, but I can't do it. Dad, would you tie my shoe? Okay, that's level 2. Level 3 is conscious competence. And that's when a kid's shaking their tongue out and they're thinking about something like tying their shoe. So they're competent, but they have to think a lot to do it. And here's a mistake I made. I used to preach for years, you needed to absolutely get in level 4 and stay there. That's where it's second nature and habit. But if you go there and you forget number 3, you can't teach it as well. If you get so good it's automatic for you and you don't know why it's working so well, it's not as easy to teach. So I now profess that level 3 and 4 is where you want to be. So you know it, you can teach it, and you can go into automatic mode if you want to. What do you think
Hey,
about
Tony, let me ask you a question. Not to interrupt you, but let me ask you a question if I can.
Who's this? What's first name?
Rich.
Hey, Rich.
Tony, quick question. So what would you say the percentage of conscious versus unconscious is our daily routines, our daily work? Because it's one of the biggest problems that we have is high performers or producers, what have you, is that we work literally in the unconscious, not the conscious state.
I would say it's a larger amount of unconscious. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
they say 70% of your day is unconscious, 30% is conscious. If we can only move that to 50-50, imagine the production that you could have. So
Well,
it's an interesting chart that you created there.
How about the
about confidence and
Rich, think about what you're just saying. It's so powerful. Think
Yep.
about low leverage activities versus high leverage activities. If you're intentional, you are focusing your time a lot better.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're just kind of letting it roll. And
You ever drive to work?
Doesn't mean it's bad, just not the best.
You ever drive to work and don't know how you got there, but you showed up? Walk
Yes.
past the stove and you know it's hot. That's why you don't touch it. 70% of your day is normally, psychologists say that it's unconscious 70%.
Wow.
And if us as salespeople could have a better awareness and be more conscious of what we do, how we do it, what our self-awareness is, we'd be much more, productive.
Yeah, and I think to get there, it's the awareness to know it, and then it's the intentionality to guide yourself. Anybody want to add? Anybody want to add to Rich's point?
Great points.
Yeah, Tony, it's Rick. Diana, when you asked earlier, when you did that poll for how we thought about what kind of learners we are, I gave it a 6. And the other reason why I did is for this particular chart, because I remember learning this many, many years ago, and I still use it kind of as a marker when talking about learning. But if not for this, I would have probably given myself a 3 to that question. And your point that you're bringing up between 3 and 4, I think is really powerful, because if we are operating every day at 70% unconscious, and to the gentleman that just mentioned, I think it was Rich, to get to a 50-50 balance, I think that's really important, because we're really good at what we do, and the guys on this call are really good on their feet, and you know, we have a mastery over the language in a lot of ways, and we're speaking to others who may be customers or peers who aren't there and may never get there. So it's almost like we have to dial it back a little bit and think to ourselves, I may be a master at this, but that person can't possibly take in the information that I'm giving them because they don't have that competency themselves. And you know what? They never really need to be. I think the important thing is we need to dial it back and maybe put ourselves in their shoes of saying they're never going to be unconsciously competent about this. And I have to not talk down to the person, but realize that I may need to simplify it a little bit because the person I'm speaking to doesn't have that articulative nature that we have, or let's say the socialization skills that we have. So I just learned something today and I appreciate this.
You nailed it, buddy. You nailed it. Let's go to number 3. I'm going to keep us moving. Impact model. You guys seen it? Let me give it to you again so you get it. When you're teaching something or you're training something, you want to get somebody to learn, you can give them your perspective. That's like the middle level. If you apply it to them, it's an angle. They go, oh, that's an angle that applies to me. Where you really want to get to in learning is you want to get to people where they have an aha, like Rick just did. And you go, aha, that's pretty good. And occasionally you get to the epiphany where it's a life-changing idea and you get it with a discovery. It's an awareness piece. Number 4, we talked about 2 weeks ago on personality types. That's a learning model. Like, how do people think? Are they more extroverted and fast-paced? Are they more methodical? Are they more people-oriented? Are they more task-oriented? 10% of the population's top left, they're drivers. They get stuff done fast. Top right, 35% is an influencer. 25 to 30% are steady Freddies. And a lot of people are into details, the C's. And knowing that is important. So when you're teaching somebody that's a C and you don't give them the details and the rationale, they may not learn it. D's, if you give them all the detail in the world, they zone out because they're like, man, just give me the bottom line so I can go use it. And the I's want you to have a little humor with it. And the steady Freddies want you to give them the process and repeat it a couple times. If you get that, you can teach better. If you get your own style, then you can filter it accordingly. And the last one is example number 5 is the mental state.
Yeah, sorry, just time out, Tony. So on the last slide, for those that were on the session last week, you actually got the DISC personality profile software that Tony has. So if you don't have it, I think you can go, Tucker, Eloise, they can go and, in effect, I guess, register, look at the session from last week and get access to that?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's of huge value. You can crank through it in 10 minutes and really insightful. So sorry, Tony, keep going.
No problem, no, Randy. I mean, that's what we want. Value, 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 value. That's what we're committed to. Example number 5 is mental states. Sometimes people come into your life as a student, but most of the time they don't. They come in as a vacationer. That means they're not a troublemaker, but they're just like there. Sometimes they come in and don't want to be there. They don't want to be online. They don't want to be in your meeting. They don't want to be in your meeting as long as it's there. Sometimes they know it all. They're like, man, I've written a book, read a book, know this, taught that, did that. And so they aren't really open to hearing what you have to say because they're into like, however, when we are at our top, our very best, we move people into student mentality, starting at the invite stage, including the host introduction, so that whatever is being said, it's being said where people are primed to move from A, B, or C to where they're in student mentality. So if you're not doing your invites and you're not doing your host introduction to be able to get people in student mentality, let me encourage you, because you look at it, the vacationer, they're just hanging out. They really aren't troublemakers, but they're just hanging out. They're prisoners. They don't really want to be there. We've all seen it. We've seen it in so many sales presentations, in person, online, where people just don't want to be there. And you got the people that know it all, and we've all seen that. And ultimately, though, and you've seen this and you love this, when someone's absorbing your sales message, they want to learn, they want to know the distinctions. Oops, I went too fast there. And that's the student. So kind of wrapping it up into the highlights so we have plenty of time to talk and still finish on time. We put together 8 highlights here to kind of summarize if you want to take a picture of that. Blind spots are important. Do you have any blind spots? Do people have blind spots? Like a lot of people have never taken the time, the 45 minutes, to really unpack learning. And it's like health. You go through life and you don't even know how the body works. It's like, duh. And if you're like going through life and you don't understand how learning works, that's a aha in itself. What's in your window? There's a lot of things that influence learning. motivation, time, long-term thinking. There's different mental states. You know, do you not want to be there? Do you want to be there? Are you a student? There's levels of learning. Where do you want to be in level 3 and 4? The mistake I made was professing everybody should be in level 4. Learning different ways. Using models is a great example. If you don't have models, that's a great example. Learning can impact you in a variety of ways. And of course, you know, thinking about changing your beliefs if you don't have the right beliefs on learning. You know, a couple of takeaways there. One, you don't want to like just watch more videos, as Rich said, and not put it into your long-term memory and into your habits so you use it. And you also don't want to like not have enough new stuff coming in your brain to stimulate you and keep you up to date. So, sorry I got on my high horse here, but this is a subject I love, guys. I just love learning. Let's have some closing thoughts here. 2 or 3 people. What's on your mind? What's your takeaways?
So, Tony, this is Jack. So when I was younger, I used to grab all the white papers I could and sit on the railroad and digest them as much as possible. And now it's all on my phone, right? When I get my team together and we try to come up with a single way to share information together in a learning mode, right? Bring in somebody to talk about new products, whatever services, whatever it happens to be. I find I have 3 types of people in the room: the young, the middle-aged, and the older. And each one of them falls into those 4 categories differently. So the young guys, the millennials, they want to receive information one way, middle-aged guy another way, and the older guys like, just give it to me old school sometimes. How do you manage to a single direction? Seems to be one of my challenges, especially on my
I
teams.
think what you got to recognize is when you're teaching a whole group of people online or in person, you've got those varieties. And if you only teach to your own self, your own style, your own way of thinking, you're limited. You got to recognize a lot of people like Flash, they like video, they like cool stuff, animation even. Young people do, they like that. And other people that may be older like things differently. They might want a handout where they can highlight it, take it home and put it in a briefcase, put it in their backpack. And you got to think through that it's not your way, it's their way. Remember the platinum rule? Deliver or train or help people learn in a way that they want to receive it. So good point. Who else? Takeaways for today. What's the one thing you're taking away? What are you going to use? What are you going to remember next week? Tucker, what are you going to do next week differently?
You know, I think for me, it's understanding the different mental states. So if you can be a little more self-aware, and if you're in a situation where, you know, maybe you think you're the graduate or something like that, you got to be able to sort of realize where you are on that scale and really make your best effort to put yourself in that student mentality. Because I think that's, if you can sort of recognize that early and get engaged and, you know, be a little more active in whatever it is you're learning, that's going to, have a big effect.
So Tucker, you're saying you can apply that to yourself or to others? Student mentality. Yes?
Yes.
When you're teaching others, remember the invite and how you set it up, the whole introduction, the host introduction, what's being said, because people are making a judgment the first few moments of a presentation. Mm-hmm. Do I want to really get into this or not? How credible is this person or not? How organized are they or not? How prepared did they get for me or not? All those things are being thought about. And if you want to move people into student mentality, you need to do it intentionally. My opinion. Thanks, Tucker. Rick, what's on your mind?
Oh, you want me again? I thought I talked enough.
Well, only 30 seconds.
Yeah. So real quick, again, back to the 3 and 4. I mean, sometimes I speak to people and not necessarily knowing where they are on the DISC. I think I need to spend a little bit more time understanding what people are there, which I believe will help me understand where their mindset is when it comes to learning.
Thanks, Rick. Phil.
The question that I had from the very beginning here is, do we try to create too much value? I was in a session a week ago, and we kept on adding more value on top of more value on top of more value, and it gets so confusing. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of great ideas, and Randy knows this. We are moving extremely fast with what we're doing. And sometimes maybe we're moving too fast. And we need to be careful of that. If you create too much value, you start to dilute the value of some things.
So let me repeat that back. So there's capacity, which I mentioned, there's overwhelm, and there's fire hosing. And so, Phil, what I'm hearing you say is we got to really recognize that the best is the best, and like a whole lot may not be better.
Yes.
Love it. Great distinction. Thanks, Phil. Who else? Eric, you on the line still?
Yeah, right here. So, again, it's trying to maintain the right level of information for people and formatted in their disc profile. I'm just seeing information overload, and then of course the tenuous emotional states that people are in. It's a fine line. It's dancing on a razor blade most days to provide the right data, relevant data with the right value.
Yep. And the right level. Yeah. Brady, you want to call on anybody, or you want to give us a wrap?
Yeah, it's great. So just as we're wrapping up, would appreciate any kind of feedback, testimonials. If you just want to pop them in the chat, that would be great. Very much appreciate it. And Tony, with all your all the sessions we do, just your experience and wisdom is fantastic. And the thing that really struck me initially going into this was it's really about how we can learn. But if you think about putting learning in the sales situations, because ideally, anytime you're selling, your customer is learning from you, and how can you get them to not necessarily learn your way, but kind of best in terms of what we're selling, what we're offering, I think is of huge value. So, Tony, appreciate it. There goes these. Ooh, bless you. All right. I don't know about protocols and sneezing on Zooms, but anyway. So again, if everybody can, put in the chat any, kind of feedback or testimony on this, would appreciate it as Tony's wrapping here. And then we have 2 more weeks. Well, it's going to be December 22nd already. Crazy. So, Vibe bringing energy. Tony, you want to give a commercial for that?
Yeah, I discovered, everybody, about a year ago that one of the reasons that people hired our company is to bring energy into their world. And so I started really dissecting that and saying, is energy that important in a culture? And I said, it absolutely is. And then I said, can you have energy from a individual leadership perspective, and can you have energy as a culture? So I started kind of playing around with it, and then I came up with a concept, the word called vibe. And I said, I need to write a book about the idea that energy matters. And as an executive, as a leader, as a sales professional, you need to think about how much energy do you bring to the table? Your passion, your energy. And then as an organization, do people want to work for you, work underneath you, work on your team? And so we're gonna bring that to life under the vibe subject. So there you have it.
That's great. Appreciate it. And as a reminder, you can go to the sales community website if you want to pass along, any of these prior sessions. There's a tab called events, and they are all loaded in there. And as always, if you can continue to spread the word, very much appreciate it. And you guys can be the first to know, but we have a 2.0 version of the site that should be live in the next couple of days, which will make it, I think, a little bit easier to have engagement and navigate some of the great content and topics in there as well. So
nice.
For those that are members, appreciate it. For those that aren't, check it out. And we still have a 30-day free trial going. So, lots of great content like this available. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
Put your comments in the chat. See you, Rick. Thanks. There you go.
Randy, you be well.
Thanks. Take care.
Get out of here. Shit.
Rick, I think you need to disconnect.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. I'm trying to.
Okay, no worries.
Give me a second, Randy. I don't know what the hell's going on. I think it's going to shut my computer.
Okay. Now you just got 5 of us, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Should we end the recording?
Done.
It's still